To my first video. Today I'll be talking to you about UIPickerView in Xcode. So let's get started by creating a new project. Okay, it's going to be a single view app, and we're just going to focus on iOS for now. Let's call it pickerview test, and we're just going to save it on desktop. Looks like I already have a Okay, to make things simple, I'm just going to turn off all of this and we're just going to keep it iPhone, iOS 13. Um, okay, so let's go to the main storyboard and add a picker view. So right now it's just a blank canvas. As you can see, it doesn't have anything. So let's add a picker view. There we go. And we're just going to add some constraints. So because this is only picker view, I'm not worried about adding other things to it. So I'm just going to have picker view take up the entire space. Okay, that's good. Now we have to hook this up to the view controller. Okay, so let's open assistant view, control click, and make our outlet. So there we go. And now we can close this. We don't need the main storyboard. So let's think about what we want to do. We want to display, let's say, our part one. For part one, we're going to display all the states, right? So all the states name. So to display, we obviously want a data source. So we need to subclass our view controller to adopt UIPickerView data source. There we go. And we also want to make sure that the data source for the picker view is itself. Okay, it's going to yell at us because we don't have the required protocols yet. That's fine. We will add it to the bottom so that it's easier to understand and navigate. Okay, so there we go, the two required protocols. Okay, so there are two. One says number of components, and the other says number of rows in components. So number of components is the number of columns that you're going to have, right? And number of rows is obviously number of rows in each component. So right now, let's just return 1, and I'll show you what that looks like. And right now, number of rows, well, we need 50, right? Because there are 50 states. So, well, that's good. But let's run this and see what it looks like, okay? We're gonna run it on iPhone SE. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, number of components, because we returned 1, there's only one component, and there are 50 question marks because we selected return 50 for the number of rows in component. Because there are only one component, there are only 50 rows in this one component. Okay, makes sense? And now we want to change this question mark to actually display states. Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and go to array state Swift. And I think someone has already made, and we just going to copy and paste that array, which is perfect. So let states equals this, And actually, I'm gonna make another file with all the data so that it's simpler to understand. Okay, so we're not crowding. So I'm just gonna make a struct called data, and I'm gonna paste that in here. Okay, so now we have an array called states in a structure called data. Okay, and we're just gonna create an instance right here. Let data equals data. Okay, and so we can access that array easily. Okay. All right, so the function that displays the title is called title for row. Actually, that is a delegate method if I recall. So let's add the delegate and pickerview.delegate equals self. Okay, now let's try it again. Title for row. Oh, there we go. It's called title for row and at component. Okay, because we only have one component, we don't really have to make it complicated just yet. But it'll be cool. I'll show you in the part 2 or 3 of this tutorial. Okay, so what we want to do is return a string, right? As you can see, the arrow says string. Here it says return an integer, so we return 50, just like here. And here we want to return a string that is going to be the title for the row, right? So we can do return data dot state, and because it's an array, we can just return the row, and it's going to, let's run it, and it's going to show all the states. As you can see, beautiful. It really works. Got all 50 states. All 50 states. Okay. Now, let's make it a little complicated. Let's make 2 components, and the first component's going to show the 2-letter um, abbreviation of the state, and the second component's going to show the full name. Okay, so let's do that. Let's change this to 2 and run it and see what it looks like. Okay. Okay, so perfect. There are 2 independent scrollers or pickers. And right now they're both showing the full state, and we're gonna fix that in the next step. But as you can see, now we have two columns with 50 in each because we haven't specified um, 50. Okay. Right now we can keep this 50 because obviously there are going to be 50 abbreviations. Right. So let's copy the abbreviations from our friend Emon8519, and we're just going to paste it in the data too. Okay. And we're going to states AB. Okay. So let's go back to the view controller, and now here we want to make sure we return. Let's comment this out for now. So let's think about our logic, right? If the component is the first one, we want to use the states AB. And if the component is the second one, we want to use data.state. So let's do that. If component equals 0, return data.states AB slash row. Okay. And else, we're just going to return data.states row. Okay. So we can safely delete this. Save it. So this is now part 2. Display all the states name and okay, let's run it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, beautiful. Now we have this, right? It's gorgeous. All right. Now I'm gonna make a little complicated. I'm gonna make things a little complicated, and it's gonna be fun because it's where the true genius of the picker and the logic that we use come into play. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to have the first component to show either two-letter state or full state. So only two options. But if I select the two-letter state, this component will only show whatever is in our two-letter abbreviation array. But if I select the full state, it's going to change to the full name of the state, okay? And how are we going to do that? So let's see. Either way, number of rows in component will change, right? So let's make an array here. Let array equals abbreviations full or full, right? Okay, so we only have two. So let's change this guy. So if component equals 0, we're going to return array.count because we only want two, right? Else return 50, right? Because if whatever we select, we're only gonna have 50 states, so we can hard code this. It doesn't have to be dynamic just yet, but in your projects, it might want to be dynamic, right? And I don't like this, so what I usually do is Command A and Control I, and it fixes all the indentation, which looks prettier. Okay. Okay, so now we want to change this title as well, right? So if component is equal to 0, we only want to return array.count, right? Else, we're going to have, okay, my bad, array.row. So if the component is 1, here we're going to have our logic. So this is our part 3, which is the fun one, right? So let's comment out our logic first. So if AB is selected, show AB dot AB row, right? And then if full is selected, show full row. Okay, so how can we do that in code? So let's say if okay, well, instead of using did select row, we can have a variable called number, and we're going to initially put it to 0. Okay. Okay. Or let's make it easier and make it 1. So if it's 1, we will think that abbreviations are selected, right? So we only want the short form. And we can change the number to 2 if the full is selected, right? Take a break. I got a phone call. All right. So where were we? So we were trying to select from the first component either abbreviations or full, right? Short or full. So let's just make that simple so that you're not making fun of me of how I say it. Short and full, okay. So let's make it short and full, and the var number 1 will correspond to short, and then we can change it later to 2, and it will correspond to full, okay. So right now, let's just say return nil, and we will get back to this, okay. And because one of the functions that we want to use is select, did select row, okay, where'd it go? Did select row, okay. So the logic here is if you're selecting anything from the component 0, change this number, right? So let's do that. If component equals 0, right? If row equals 0, right? Number equals 1. Else, if row equals 1, number equals 2, right? So let's also print it out, okay? So that we know selected row 0, number is 1, okay? So that you guys know what this code is doing. Selected row 1 and the number is 2. Okay. Okay, let's run it. Okay, and we're gonna concentrate on the console here. Okay, so short, selected row, number is 1. Full, selected row 1, number is 2. Perfect, so it's doing what we want it to do. That is great, right? All right, so this is good, and we can comment out the code, right? We don't want this. Okay. So now the title changes, right? So let's say if number equals 1, right? If number equals 1, and if component equals 0, we only want to return array.row, right? Else return, because number 1 is selected, meaning short, right? So we're gonna have data dot abbreviation slash row, right? If number equals 1 is this logic, but it could be number 2, right? So let's put an else statement. Let's put an else statement. Else if component equals 0, again, return array dot row, which is fine. Else we're gonna return data dot states, full states, and row. Okay. Okay, everything is fine. Let's run it. Okay, so short, AK, perfect. Let's do full. Okay, it's working, but because it's reusing the cells, and what that means is if something goes out of the view here, it repopulates, changes name, and starts. So the Apple is reusing those cells. If you remember table views, they use cells. So each row is getting reused, and that's why this, this little buggy, this little bug, we can fix that easily. Okay, so as soon as we change the number, we're gonna do pickerview.reload all components, and it's just gonna refresh our picker view, and it will not look this buggy. So let's check it out. So full, there you go. Short, full, short, full. Perfect. Looks amazing. Does the job, and that's it. So this was the uh, part three of the tutorial. So 3 parts. We made single component picker view. In the part 2, we made the double component, and in the part 3, we changed depending on what was selected. So I think this is pretty much everything you need to know about picker views, and then obviously you can print out what is here and use it for the rest of your program pretty easily using this did select row delegate method. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. If you like this video, well, like the video. Thank you.